Now, whoever came up with the saying, "two's company, three's a crowd," might well have been talking about watch subdials. Take 3-register chronographs, for example. If you're a stickler for symmetry, you might see that third subdial as a little awkward, and that only really makes more visual sense when you envisage a panda, because it's not as if most of us will ever actually use it. It's the more dispensable of the chronograph subdials, and it's usually the one that records lapsed hours. Handy if you're timing marathons or the latest Martin Scorsese movie. Not so much if you're just trying to get the yolk in your boiled eggs perfect. For many of us, myself included, a simple 2-register chronograph is all we'll ever need. Plus, there's the bonus of a far less crowded dial. A dial that's more Zen meditation garden and less Waterloo Station during rush hour. Then add a manual wind movement with an exhibition case back into the mix, and you've got a handsome, no-frills timepiece without a pesky winding rotor spoiling your view of that magical micro-universe of wheels and levers. And it goes without saying that some of the finest watch brands in the known galaxy make such a model. And I've rounded up a hat-trick of my favourites, namely Patek Philippe's Complications Reference 5170G, Vacheron Constantin's Historiques Corne de Vache 1955, and our Lange Söhne's 1815 chronograph. Here then is your 3-way comparison of 2-register chronographs in a high-end dress sports watch style. It's a triangle of timekeeping triumph, and you're slap bang in the middle with a front row seat. No gum chewing, please. So, what I love about these 3 models is their resemblance to the first ever chronograph wristwatches. Although a handful of chronograph wristwatches were available in the first 2 decades of the 20th century, it wasn't until the 1920s and 1930s that this genre of watch really got going. And these were usually of the 2-register kind, all powered by manual wind movements, as the first automatic chronograph caliber was still decades away. And as with many complications, the earliest chronographs arrived in the 19th century in the form of pocket watches. They had many uses, from naval navigation to astronomy, but chronographs were particularly handy for the military, especially those featuring a telemeter scale. These complications allowed soldiers to calculate the distance of, say, enemy cannons by timing the seconds between seeing the light and hearing the sound of the gunfire. Naturally, it was only a matter of time before these watches gravitated from the pocket to the wrist for ease of access. The increased need for accurate sports timing also made the chronograph more widespread, especially for events like the Olympics and motor racing, and brands were keen to establish themselves in this field, both for kudos and publicity. Patek Philippe and Vacheron Constantin weren't exactly clamouring to join the list of watchmakers whose names were plastered all over these sporting events, but they knew the value of offering their customers more than just the precious metal, time-only dress watches. As for our Lange Söhne, it was a slightly different story. After its re-establishment in the early 90s, Lange made its chronograph debut in 1999, but it's since made up for lost time with exceptional models like the Datograph and this 1815. At first sight, these models look a little like non-identical triplets, so let's get better acquainted. What's instantly noticeable about the dial of the Patek Philippe is the addition of the pulsometer scale, not something you see every day. As the name suggests, this is used for measuring heart rate, which is why such watches are nicknamed doctor's watches. But rest assured, you don't have to wear it with a stethoscope or have terrible handwriting. Now, the dial itself is the crisp white of a doctor's coat. I'll stop the medical analogies now, with applied white gold breguet numerals and baton hands, as well as a railroad-style track to help you keep an eye on the elapsed seconds and read the minutes at a glance. As for the 2 subdials, they sit a little below the equator of the dial and are slightly recessed to give the dial added depth. Equally crisp is the silver dial of the Vacheron Constantin, although this features the more conventional tachymeter scale, which records average speed and is what you'll find on classic chronographs like the Daytona. The light blue tachymeter scale pops nicely against the white, while the applied Roman numerals in white gold give it a conservative but classy touch. The dial is more balanced too, with the recessed subdials sitting right on the halfway line. Like the Patek, the hour and minute hands keep things tastefully understated, and the blued steel seconds hand and that of the 30-minute counter echo the colour of the tachymeter scale. Meanwhile, the Lange has a multi-stepped silver dial, giving it greater depth, and has dispensed with scales completely. No meters at all, no tachy, tele, pulso, alti, thermo, parking, gas or any other meter for that matter. There's only the railroad-style tracks for the main dial and subdials to help with legibility. This results in an even cleaner dial than the other two, with the sunken subdials sitting just off-centre like the Patek, and the hour and minute hands, which are blued steel, stand out a little more on this watch, and the black Arabic numerals are printed as opposed to applied. As with many Lange watches, the dial is fashioned from solid silver and galvanised, a hallmark of the brand. All three watches record elapsed minutes and seconds, with the subdial on the right recording the former, up to 30 minutes, and the centrally mounted seconds hand recording the latter. The subdial on the left is for the continuously running small seconds. The white gold case of the Patek is textbook stuff. Its simple shape, a firm nod to the brand's watches of old. At 39.4mm, it's hitting the sweet spot that makes it suitable for wrists both slender or hench. And that manually wound movement inside keeps it pretty thin too, at just 10.9mm. And they've definitely made the right choice with the elongated rectangular pushers curving around the case, giving the impression that they've been specially designed just for this watch, which they may well have been. This being the kind of chronograph you're more likely to wear with a business suit than Formula 1 overalls, it's teamed with an uber-smart black leather strap, which features a deployant clasp, with a Calatrava crossbuckle that's almost the size of a pog, but at least it'll be sitting underneath your wrist. In fact, the buckle might be the most ostentatious thing about this model, as it's all beautifully understated and as wearable as that favourite old sweater that you've had for years. As for the Vacheron Constantin, its 38.5mm case is the most unique of the three, thanks to its vintage-inspired corne de vache, or cow horn lugs, which are the most striking thing about this platinum watch. They're masterfully welded onto the case, and they look like they've been sculpted by the chisel of Michelangelo himself. It's all very tactile and organic, hence the round pump pushers. Like the Patek, its case thickness is 10.9mm, but it has a pinbuckle black leather strap. Meanwhile, the Lange has a classically styled round 39.5mm rose gold case, with lugs that are straighter with a slight taper, making them look more substantial than the Patek. The Lange's case is the thinnest of the three, but only just, measuring up to 10.8mm. It too has a pinbuckle strap, but the strap here is brown to complete the warm vintage vibe given off by the rose gold of the case. All three watches feature exhibition casebacks, and as no sane human wears a dressy chronograph to the beach, you wouldn't want to get those lovely leather straps wet anyway, each watch has 30 metres of water resistance, which is fine by me. For this chronograph, Patek has used its in-house CH29535PS movement, which first appeared on the scene in 2009. This is actually only a few years after the brand made its first ever in-house manual wind chronograph. The calibre is certainly easy on the eye, both in its architecture and its finishing, with the movement polished and chamfered and boasting techniques like perlage and Geneva striping. It also bears the hallowed Patek Philippe seal, its in-house quality hallmark that certifies the entire watch. The movement beats at 28,800 VPH and the power reserve is a respectable 65 hours. For a watch called the Historiques, Vacheron has opted for a movement that has history oozing out of every component, with a calibre rather fitting for the 50s aesthetic of this watch. While it's called the Calibre 1142, it's actually based on the legendary Le Mania 2310 from the 1940s, which was also the basis for the movement inside the Omega Speedmaster that went to the moon. The movement here is heavily modified with performance upgrades to the chronograph levers, gears and springs, along with cool cosmetic changes like the shape of the bridges and the Maltese cross column wheel. Plus, it features a free-sprung balance now too. It's no surprise that it's also exquisitely finished with chamfering, perlage and Geneva striping, much like the Patek. But it's stamped with the Geneva seal, a quality certification that used to be used by Patek Philippe until it decided to do its own thing. This one beats at 21,600 VPH and the power reserve is 48 hours. As for the Lange Söhne, it uses the chronograph calibre L951.5, which is of the flyback variety. This differs to the other two in that to start a new measurement on the Patek and the Vacheron, you'd have to stop the chronograph, reset it and then start it again. Here, with flyback functionality, the Lange does that whole process if you press the 4 o'clock pusher while the chronograph is running. Handy for precise timing of consecutive events. And then this being Lange, the look of the movement is something else. There's a great feeling of depth here, with constellations of thermally blued steel screws and mirror-polished gold chatons. And there's glasuta striping, chamfering, straight graining and perlage, to name but a few techniques on display here. But the pièce de résistance is the famed Lange balance cock, whose hand-engraved floral pattern is unique to each piece. Plus, the plates and bridges are fashioned from German silver, which develops a warm, golden patina over time. The movement runs at 18,800 VPH and runs for 60 hours on a full wind. All three chronograph movements are of the more desirable column wheel variety, which is generally regarded as more refined than the economical cam-actuated system. So, with all three of these models now discontinued, you can only find them on the pre-owned market, and as long as they come with their box and papers, they're all fairly similarly priced. The white gold Patek Philippe can be bought for around £40,000, while prices for the rose gold Lange Söhne start at around £34,000, and the platinum Vacheron Constantin ranges between £37,000 to £42,000. So picking just one of these is to me like having to choose my favourite Bee Gees brother. I'm genuinely struggling. But I do love the Vacheron for its distinctive cow horn lugs. But that said, I'd never tire of admiring the beauty of a Lange movement. The unique hand-engraved elements are a reminder in this AI gone mad world that some things can and should still be done by the fallible hand of a living, breathing, sweating human. But what about you? Are you picking the Patek, or are you leaning towards the Lange, or are you vouching for the Vacheron? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want more amazing watches, be sure to head over to watchfinder.com and find your next luxury pre-owned watch. Check it out, and I'll catch you next time. Goodbye.